Yes, she goes Linda Ronstadt this morning and Blue by You. 9:20, and it is that time of the week again. Oh, hang on. I've got to close everything down, otherwise he can't hear it and he gets upset. It's time for Mathew Dickerson and Tech Talk.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Mathew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Morning, Matthew. How are you?
You wouldn't want to see me upset, would you?
No, I'd hate to see you
for
upset.
doing that.
Now,
Thank
listen, when I spoke about brothels and social distancing, I read that. I just want to make that quite clear.
That was the first thing that came to my mind, Richard. I said, how have you worked this out? How have you discovered this? Is this a real-world experience?
No. No. I remember when we were on council together, we had to get someone to inspect the brothels and no one put their hand up. Why would you in public?
I did say you could go down to the pub on a Friday night and there'd be lots of volunteers to go inspect a brothel.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, dear. This is a really good story, and it's one about autonomous bot clearing landmines. This is a great story.
I didn't realise, Richard, that landmines were still out there. I thought by now, surely, there's been a long time since there's been a conflict where lots of landmines have been planted. So I thought they were all gone. But apparently not. Apparently there's still landmines out there. And the really scary part is that 100 people roughly die each year clearing landmines because they're still done by humans. So this little bot, designed by Data61, it's a CSIRO project as well, is basically designed to go around the world and clear landmines. And so they do it in a few steps. They first of all track out they actually literally spray paint down lines and then track that out so they can actually go over that in an initial pass. Then they go a little bit more detailed where they run essentially a metal detector and try and find them. And then when they finally get to the final point, which is obviously the scary part, I would have thought, you found the landmine, you don't want to start digging it up because as soon as you trigger that little trigger on top, well, that's the explosion.
Boom.
Yeah, that's right.
Boom.
So these actually inject, the little robots inject a certain solution into the actual landmine that actually renders it useless. So then they can just be dug up and taken out. So it sounds like a great thing. But the other scary stat out of it, Richard, was since 1999, when they started tracking the clearing of landmines, 122,000 people have been killed. So this is way after combats are finished, another 122,000 people killed. So pretty sad. So if you can get a bot that can do this, fantastic. And if worst case scenario happens and it does actually get it wrong, well, you've lost a bit of money blowing up the robot, which isn't great, but it's a lot better than losing a human life.
Yeah, you haven't lost a human, you just lost a bot. You haven't lost a human, which is terrific.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Now, this is a local story almost. Solar cell efficiency improved as Wollongong starts up to replace batteries with not lithium but silver.
Well, replacing silver with copper.
Oh, copper, sorry.
Yeah, and that's one of the major expenses of a solar cell. In fact, across the world, 15% of all silver used is used in solar cells.
Yep.
And obviously there's an environmental expense about digging up the silver. I think the long-term benefit is still there. But there's a startup down in Wollongong who's basically changing the process so that you can use copper, which is much more abundant than silver, in solar panels and gain some huge efficiencies there. And there's a few things I get excited about with this one. The first thing is fantastic. Replace silver with copper, lots of benefits there. But the second one that gets me really excited is you've got the ability, maybe, for some Australian manufacturing.
Yes.
And that would be great.
Yes.
Now, one of the investors in this particular one is a Chinese company, so I'm sure there's still some people in China who would like to be invested in this technology, but just having the manufacturing process here using our innovation would be fantastic. And one of the things I like about this is that the number one rooftop solar connector in the world per capita is this country. So if there's anywhere that's going to use solar panels, we've got lots of sun, we've got lots of clear blue skies, so let's keep filling up our roofs. And as you know from your time on council, Dubbo was at one stage the number one solar connector in this nation. So the number one solar connector in the nation that's the number one solar connector in the world is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. In fact, I think we've slipped a little bit.
We have.
I think you'll find that Alstonville on the North Coast is up there with us now. Pretty close, actually.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, we've certainly slipped from number one. There's no doubt about that.
Who cares? At least we've got lots of solar panels in the town, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
All right, COVID-19, the latest, the Safe app. It's been a disaster.
Well,
Well, it
disaster
has.
might be a bit strong. Let's go on dismal failure.
What's a dismal failure and disaster? What's the difference?
So we've got the contact tracing app. We've had the Prime Minister encouraging everyone to install it. You want to get back to the pubs, you've got to put the app on your phone. They were aiming for 40%, and we always knew, we've talked about it before, you and I always said 40% was, they were dreaming.
You're never going to get it.
If they got 20%, that'd be okay. And they've probably got around about 20%. But at that point, it's probably not much use. And when you look at across the entire nation, the hundreds of cases that have been found of coronavirus since the app was released, the app's been used a total of 30 times.
Yeah.
10 times in this state, 18 times in Victoria, and most states around the country not used at all. So not a lot of use there. We spent $1.5 million, which sounds like a lot of money to develop an app, but look, I thought that was a reasonable amount to develop an app very quickly that was going to be used across the nation. But I still think, and we talked about this months ago, I still think Apple and Google, two huge companies across the world, they were developing the technology to do this. We should have just jumped on their coattails rather than try and develop the whole thing ourselves. So unless a lot more people install it, it's still probably not going to be used that many more times.
True, but I mean, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in a case like this, really. I mean, it was there. Okay, Google, and we could have picked it up with Google and Apple and so on, but had the government not done that and we'd had a huge outbreak, why didn't you have the app?
It probably was prevention rather than cure, but I still think just jump on the back of those big multinationals, pay them a small sum, not $1.5 million, and away you go.
Yep, indeed. Well, now we have Space Nuts here on DCFM 88.9 with Andrew Dunkley and Dr. Fred Watson, Professor, and he's at Coonabarabran, and we do that on Thursday nights at 10 o'clock. But and they get excited about the Australian space industry, and so have you.
Yeah. So we're the only OECD nation that doesn't have its own launching capabilities, and so we have got lots of things that we put up into space. There's lots of technology of ours that we either designed or manufactured here in Australia that we've put up through other space rockets through other countries. But developing our own space agency through a collaboration between Gilmore and University of Queensland. So Gilmore's a private company on the Gold Coast. So having your own ability to launch rockets is pretty exciting. It'll happen within a couple of years. And one of the first things I'll be trying to do is something that I've been talking about for a long time we should be doing is getting some low Earth orbit satellites for internet connectivity. Now when you've got regional areas like out here where we live and you've got people that can't get normal NBN, fibre to the node or fibre to the premises, then when you've got a satellite that you're relying on, the satellites sit at approximately 37,000 kilometres above the Earth. And you get this huge latency, you get a very frustrating experience. You can have low Earth orbit satellites that sit around 500 to 800 kilometres above the Earth, which sounds fantastic. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, the problem is you can put up one satellite geostationary to cover one piece of the Earth. When they're that low, they keep spinning around the Earth multiple times per day. So you need a series of them. And to cover the entire Earth, you need about 52 just to cover one nation, not quite that many. But effectively, you need a lot up there. But this will be one of the first things I'll be aiming is to get that better internet connectivity across all of Australia, not just those highly populated areas.
All right, well, the rocket that went up the other day dropped some satellites. That was a Musk rocket, wasn't it?
That's right. And so Elon Musk has said that he's going to cover the Earth with satellite coverage for internet connectivity as well. So he's doing something similar. I think the idea of Australia doing that is really just to focus on this country. Elon's focusing, focusing on the world.
Where's the water?
I don't know.
We haven't got the water, mate. While you're clearing yourself, very quickly because you've got to go. I've lost my point because you coughed.
Sorry, my apologies. So Elon's trying to cover the entire Earth with some internet connectivity. Elon's trying to do lots of things at the same time. He's trying to get connectivity to Mars. He's trying to do a range of things. He's trying to bore tunnels underground and get us onto Mars at the same time.
Oh, unbelievable. Mate, very quickly, a lot of space junk up there. Is this going to increase the space junk?
Oh, absolutely.
Ultimately.
Yeah, they're definitely right. There's a huge amount of space junk up there. Hopefully this isn't junk. Hopefully this is actually going to be used. But most things they put into space have a lifetime. They have a lifetime of 10, 20, maybe 30 years. Some of it comes back into the Earth and we see a shooting star and go, wow, wasn't that beautiful? But more often than not, it's a bit of space junk falling back into the atmosphere.
Like that green one the other night. Right, in about 90 seconds, a Cameo, the Zoom and Zoom cameos. What's all that about?
Well, Cameo started up as the way to have a celebrity give a shout out to someone. So you can say, hey, Richard, how you going today? It's Billy Bloggs, famous person. And you pay $400 for that with Cameo. They've now gone a step further. You can do a Zoom call for $15,000 for some celebrities, and you would argue that some celebrities that aren't really celebrities are doing it. The real celebrities probably don't need to do it, but Jeremy Piven, for example, was saying 15 grand for a 10-minute Zoom call, and I must admit, I didn't think Jeremy was at that sort of level. You'd pay 15 grand for 10 minutes with him, but Tony Hawk, skateboarder Tony Hawk, he only charged $1,000 for 10 minutes with him. So there's a few different ones out there.
How much for the Kardashians? Boring.
Well, I can imagine that would be ridiculous amounts, but again, I think ones at that level probably figure they don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Or even if you charged a huge amount, they'd probably be very popular. I did look down the list to see how much for 10 minutes with Richard Mutton, but I didn't see you've registered on there yet. So
No.
you should get onto that and register straight away.
Yeah, sure, it'd be a $1. It'd be $1. Matt, always good talking with you.
Thanks, Richard.
We'll see you next Wednesday morning here on Tech Talk, DCFM 88.9. It's bang on 9:30, actually 9:31. Things have just clicked over. We better do this.